So, good afternoon. My name is Ben Hanley. I'm the owner and founder of Enigma People Solutions. We're a technology recruitment firm. Welcome to our webinar where we have the pleasure of introducing you to the UKESF, the UK Electronic Skills Foundation. So I wanted to start off with letting you know why we thought this would be a useful webinar for people out there. So as a specialist technology recruitment firm, we operate throughout the UK, but mainly within Scotland. We deal with semiconductor, photonics, electronics clients mainly, and also Internet of Things companies as they grow up. Now, one of the things that we've noticed is a high demand for graduates, or an increased demand for graduate engineers, but ideally those that have been tried and tested. So that's always been a problem for the clients that we're dealing with. So one of the things that we have also found is the market is growing in Scotland, and there are a significant moves afoot to create Scotland as a centre of excellence within the tech sphere within the world. So we're really excited to play our part by supporting our clients as they grow. One of the ways that we do this is we've engaged with Technology Scotland. We're a corporate sponsor of that organisation, and I personally sit on the advisory board with and help them with some of the initiatives that they're trying to bring in. So we felt that it would be useful to have a look at how companies in Scotland can attract the very best talent, and we came across the UKESF, and so I'm delighted today to be able to introduce you to Stew Edmondson, who's the CEO of UKESF, and he is going to run us through today some elements of how the UKESF might be able to help companies in Scotland. So, but before we go into Stew's presentation, I wanted to just maybe ask Stew a couple of questions about some of what he's seen in the market over the last year or so, and ask Stew to give a bit of an overview of who he is and his view of the market. So, Stew, hello.
Hi Ben, good afternoon. Good afternoon everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. It's great to talk to you and to everyone. I think you're right, Ben. It is an exciting time. There's a whole lot of initiatives sponsored by government, sponsored by other investment, and undoubtedly technology is moving forward at a rapid rate. As you also highlighted, there is a real challenge around getting enough people involved right through the talent pipeline, particularly around graduates, to support that growth. There's a whole lot of investment, as I say. If you look at the number of people doing PhDs, that's increasing as a proportion of those who have studied at university. Not enough studying at university, and that's what we'll talk about later in the presentation. But no, it's definitely a good time. A whole lot of initiatives. Wherever you look on the news last few days, talking about autonomous vehicles, talking about how technology can solve a whole lot of society's problems. So yes, very exciting.
Thanks, Stew. So it really is a hot topic at the moment, getting the right talent pipeline into organisations. I believe there's a lot that organisations can do for themselves to attract the right people. I guess where we see ourselves fitting into the market as a recruitment company is to go and identify the senior and experienced people that can add significant value. But more and more we've seen clients have a need to go and identify the graduate level and PhD level people, and have those people kind of tried and tested or already trained so that they can fit into their organizations more efficiently. So I think that's something that your organization can help them with. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, bridging that gap between the output of university and the input to industry technology companies is definitely something that where we work hard on. And equally, the other point, and you're right, I think companies have a big part to play about raising awareness of the great things they're doing. As an engineer, I know we're often slightly reticent about promoting ourselves and what great stuff and great opportunities there are out there. But we do need to do more, because young people at school, their parents, careers advisors, teachers are just not aware of the size of the electronics and technology sector in the UK, and therefore they're not promoting it, or not. It's not as aspirational as it should be or could be.
Oh, that plays absolutely to my thinking, Stu. One of the things that I lament, but also try and encourage people to do, is to think about how we can promote the electronics industries in the UK. I'd suffer with the frustration that there are amazing companies doing fantastic work, and so often because they're not creating maybe a consumer product, we don't know about them. So then that cascades down to the schools and to parents making decisions about what their children might do. My daughter's 13, so we're starting to have those conversations about what she might do with her life, and I would like to think that she would have a sense of the opportunities out there. And I don't think there's enough done, but certainly I think there's more that can be done to promote the industry within schools and the choices that people might make.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We need to do more. We need to be more overt to raise the profile of the industry and the exciting cutting-edge developments that are going on, and the great work that's been done out there.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Stu, maybe you would like to take us through how the UKESF can help the industry up here in Scotland, but also right throughout the UK. That'd be great to hear.
Sure, Ben, thank you. So let me start by explaining what the UK Electronic Skills Foundation is. It's a charitable foundation with one aim, as we were just discussing, to try and promote electronics and encourage more young people to get involved in electronics and pursue careers. In order to encourage more young people, we need to do two things. We need to raise awareness, as we were just describing, about what electronics is, what technology is, and that there are opportunities in the UK. And then to support those young people as they develop their interest all the way through to working in the sector. We were founded in 2010 by NMI and its members, and we do collaborate right across the UK with a number of trade associations and universities. Let me start by taking you back to 2007. I'm not sure the age of the people on the call, but to me, 2007 is not that long ago. But this fella, Steve Jobs, stood up at an Apple event with that device. That device is the first iPhone. So January 2007, Steve Jobs launched the iPhone. Apple launched the iPhone. And if you talk to young people, as I frequently do in school settings and so on, they don't. An iPhone, a smartphone, is part of their everyday technology, and it's revolutionised the way that we consume entertainment, the way that we shop, the way that we communicate with family and friends. But it is quite insightful to think it is only 12 years ago that that device, that technology, that way of living our society operates just didn't exist. So that just shows how rapidly technology advances. So having looked at the history, if we look forward, then we look at the government, and they've set out in the Made Smarter review and the industrial strategy a number of challenges. And at those challenges and at the centre of the industrial strategy is digitisation, is technology, is electronics. So that shows in the future that government and investors are looking for technology to solve problems that society and we all face. If you look at the amount of investment from venture capitalists, then absolutely the top 7 items on that list of technologies that venture capitalists are investing in are all to do with electronics and technology in one shape or form. The final area that I would mention to people is connected cars, autonomous vehicles, and automotive in general is such a growth area. Every large automotive company is looking at electric batteries, electrification of the drive chain, driver assistance processes, and the connectivity of vehicles. It's a massive growth area that depends on electronics. Even if you look at computing and related technologies, then here's a list of Amazon devices, which they all contain electronics. They all depend on electronics to work. You look at advances on the tech companies. If we look at Google, massive data centers that they're creating in the far north in Scandinavia, all based on electronics. Equally, Apple investing $45 million in a research center in China for new hardware. And even Microsoft. Microsoft are looking at FPGAs to help machine learning. So they all got ambitions. So the technology companies are all looking at electronics and electronics-derived improvements to drive forward their businesses. So what about electronics sector in the UK? When we were chatting with Ben, it was saying it's big. And let's look at some statistics from the government. As of December 2017, it showed that there's 53,000 companies in the broader electronic systems ecosystem in the UK. Now, if you look, the majority of those, 43 and a bit thousand, are very small micro organisations, but they're startups largely and are likely to develop. There's over 285 companies with over 250 employees. So that's an awful lot of organisations which generate about 6% of GDP for the country. In terms of total employment, well, it's 926,000 people who are employed in the electronic sector. So it's very significant part of our economy. And there comes a problem, because if we look at how many students, UK students, are studying electronic and electrical engineering at university, it's not as many as there should be relative to other engineering disciplines. So the graphs here show three of the principal types of engineering that people study at university. The blue is mechanical engineering, the green is civil engineering, and the red is electrical electronic engineering. This data is from UKESF and shows over the 10 years, the number studying mechanical engineering have doubled to roughly about 6,500. And as you can see from the red line, those studying electrical electronic engineering has pretty much maintained the same and dipped close to 3,000 with civil engineering overtaking. Large numbers of people do computer science as well, but relatively, although the numbers, overall numbers of people studying STEM subjects at university are increasing, those studying specifically electronic and electrical engineering have flatlined and in fact have decreased slightly, which is really frustrating and disappointing and leads to an increased demand for those students. There's another challenge as well. It's not simply about numbers game, about the quantity of students. It's really important that graduates are ready for the workplace. And as Ben was mentioning, employers expect those leaving university and entering the workplace to be fit for purpose, as it were. If you look at the most recent IET Skills and Demand Survey, they talk about work-ready employees. And I'll just highlight the statistic there that they say, employers say across the UK that largely graduates are not necessarily fit for purpose, that don't suit the needs of your organisations because they don't develop practical skills or they don't provide other practical experience for students. Now, universities would argue they're not training people, they're education establishments, and that's a fair point as well. However, there is this definite difference of opinion about the readiness of graduates to enter the workplace. So this is where something like our scheme, our undergraduate scholarship scheme, can come in. And our tagline is that we connect the most capable students who are studying electronics at the top UK universities with employers. And there's a photo of Warren East. He was an advocate of our scheme when it started in 2010, when he was a CEO at ARM, and has followed on since he moved to Rolls-Royce. And he kindly spoke at an event we organised a couple of years ago, and Rolls-Royce are a member of our scheme, which is great support. In terms of the universities that we work with 21 universities right across the UK, including 3 in Scotland, which is Heriot-Watt, Glasgow and Edinburgh University. But they're all research-led universities with well-established, productive electronic engineering departments with really good numbers of UK students at each. What do employers say about our scheme? I've got quotes from 3 companies which have been very positive, that have been involved in our scheme since the outset. And I understand from Ben that there's some people from Leonardo on the call, which is great. And you've been involved in our scheme since the outset, which is good. It's not just large employers or well-established employers that the scheme works for. We work with a range of companies. There's 52 on that slide there. Some you will know very well, some you might have heard of, and some that you may not have heard of. Our scheme works for a range of employers, big and small, in particular niche areas, for instance compilers, which is Embecosm, or more generally in other areas. The value proposition that we put to employers is this. So effectively, you can rely on us to access a pool of really talented and engaged and interested students who are studying electronics and related subjects. It's a very broad pool that we fish in to get students for you. And effectively, we can bring them to you. And therefore, by connecting with them as undergraduates, you reduce your risk of graduate recruitment. Graduate recruitment is a problematic and expensive activity, and actually research shows that connecting with students whilst they're undergraduate works really well. As I say, the scheme started in 2010 and has been going since then. We've awarded through sponsoring companies almost 500 scholarships, 489 to be exact so far at the moment, and of those 270 have graduated. Around 2/3 were offered employment, 14% went on to do postgraduate study, mainly PhDs, and really heartening, bearing in mind we know from the evidence that a lot of engineers don't actually work in the sector once they do graduate. We know that 83% of those people who've been on our scheme are working in the broader electronics and technology ecosystem, which is really good. In summary, why should you work with the UKESF? Well, we work with 21 universities and can reach out on your behalf to attract students from those universities to our undergraduate scheme. We manage the whole process and bring to you graduates that want to work with you, work for you, and have the relevant knowledge and skills that you're looking for. We do, and I say this unashamedly, we do attract really good students, and we have both anecdotal and empirical evidence from employers to say that the students attracted to our scheme are definitely really up there at the top of those that are studying electronics in the UK. It's really heartening to do that, and we're able to do that because of our reputation with those universities. We work really hard with tutors and academics at the university to make sure that they signpost their students, their most capable students, to our scheme, and that's really heartening that works. So we're really at that nexus between industry and academia, and can help a range of companies, hopefully more companies, to connect with students. If you'd like to learn more, that's my email address or my mobile number, and I can, if you get in touch, I can send you more information about our scheme. And at that point, I will hand you back to Ben.
Stu, thank you so much. So one of the things that I thought would be useful to have is a bit of a Q&A session just now. So if anybody has any questions, please type them into the Q&A element on the Zoom pages. Certainly, I had one or two questions that I had for you, which were, first of all, I love the idea of how this solves the problem for companies to go and find the best talent. I think lots of these companies will have a local relationship with a university. How do you think this can help them in terms of gaining reach? Because fine to have one relationship, but there are a number of universities out there right throughout the UK that they could then contact. How does that help you?
Yeah, sure. It's absolutely complementary to that. Most of the companies, in fact, pretty much all the companies we work with, will have a relationship with their local university or more than one university, and that works really well, and we see our scheme as complementary. We can reach right across the UK, and the evidence we have from our students, because we ask them, those people who join the scheme are not driven by geography of where the companies that they work with over the summer or longer periods. They're not actually, those sort of hygiene factors don't come into it. What motivates our students is exciting projects, doing real work, and working at the cutting edge of technology. So in that way, we can appeal to students right across the UK, all the way down in the south coast at Southampton, through Wales, home county. We know that students at those universities would be happy to come to Scotland to work with employers that they found interesting and exciting.
Well, that's fantastic. That gives an extra reach to talent that maybe is untapped by the Scottish organisations. So we've got a question from Alan. So do you plan to add other universities?
It's a matter of supply and demand. Universities tend to approach us because they're keen to work with us. And yes, we are looking at other universities. I'm currently in discussions with Swansea University, who are particularly big in optoelectronics and also compound semiconductors, to get Swansea to join. We're in discussions with Queen's and also Liverpool and Warwick. So yeah, we have to manage the demand. So the more companies that are involved in our scheme, the more students we can help. I don't wish to go out to every university in the country. There is a quality aspect as well. We need to work with the right universities and need to make sure that we have a sufficient number of students to match the demand from employers. So for instance, just to say, this year for our scheme, we had close to 208 applications. So these are all UK or EU students at one of those 21 universities, on track to get a 2-1, wanting to work with the companies in our scheme. So we had 280 applications for our scheme this year.
That's fantastic. So what's the ratio from student applicants to students that then get taken on by a company?
Our scheme's really flexible. We don't state a minimum for companies that join our scheme because we know the nature of the industry doesn't work like that. So really how many students we can help depends on the number of companies and how many students those companies can help. This year, we've placed 70 students.
Okay, so 1 out of every four? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's excellent. And you mentioned that these are people that are on track to have a 2-1. Is that the bar for them, and they have to be on track for a 2-1 to be considered?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was set in consultation with our sponsors from the outset, and we've seen no reason to change that. We can, all those 280 applicants this year were on track to get a 2-1. And historically, interesting enough, we keep data on this, about 40% of people on our scheme end up with a first.
Oh, that's fantastic. So do you feel that the process of being engaged by the companies actually helps develop the students in their career path as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it shows that it's a pull factor. So they go to university to study electronics because they're interested in the subject. They think about a career, but I think having the motivation of a graduate job with one of our companies in our network is definitely a motivating factor.
Fantastic, thanks for that. So we've got another question, which is, do you plan to widen the degrees that are offered?
I took over in 2015, and one of the first things I did was widen these. So our specification for the degrees is studying at one of the universities on a course that includes electronics. So for instance, mechatronics and general engineering are fine. So we really do, and there's a number of electronics departments that are working with computer science as well. So we take a very broad definition of electronics, as broad as people want it to be, in order to meet the needs of sponsoring companies. We're not high-bound by particular courses. As long as it's a course that includes electronics and people are motivated to join our scheme, then it's down to companies to select people that are fit for their business.
Fantastic. So Maybe you could talk about how the graduates are attracted into the scheme. That's one of the questions that's popped up.
So our scheme is for undergraduates, but effectively, as I say, about 2/3 of companies will, if they're looking, there's no obligation on a sponsor to employ a student beyond graduation, but the reality is 2/3 of them do that, are looking to do that. So what would tend to happen during the summer placement of their penultimate year, a company would make an offer to the student for graduate employment, which means a company's got a graduate ready for when the student's finished, and the student knows going into their final year that they've got a job at the end of it, and that works really well. But there is no obligation; it is just a gentleman's agreement. Yeah.
Cool. And how do the universities promote the program to their students?
The short answer is they promote it really actively. The universities really like our scheme because they see it as an attraction for people coming to their university to study, because it helps the employability of their graduates. So what we do at the start of every academic year, every company in our scheme has equal billing on our website, equal promotion on the website, and we promote the opportunities to universities. We do a series of webinars with students to promote the scheme, but it's effectively down to an academic who they know at their university, who gets the students together and actively promotes the scheme to them. So we operate a common application form, and students can pick up to 4 companies which they apply. We make sure that they are a good fit. We do some initial sifting and then forward to the company. So we do take care of all the marketing attraction with the academics that work with us at all our partner universities.
Crikey, sounds like a lot of work. Well done. So one of the questions actually we've got is around, I think you gave a figure for the percentage of students who've got a first class honours. Maybe you could repeat that. Yeah,
sure. As far as we know, we keep in touch with people who graduated our scheme through an alumni network, and we know that 40% of those that graduated on our scheme have got a first.
40%, that's fantastic. That's really
it's very high. Yeah, it sort of shows if you set the bar at a 2-1, they are really good people working hard. I would say, maybe there's a factor these days that a larger percentage of people anyway at universities get first. It was certainly a lot less in my day, but that's my excuse for not getting one.
that makes me feel better as well. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk about some of the financing of this. So what does it cost for a company to engage a student and take them on?
Yeah, we try and make it as affordable as possible because we want to help as many students as we can. And we recognise that companies will have a budget for this sort of early careers activity, graduate recruitment, graduate employment. So we set the bar pretty low. We are a charity, so we're not trying to make money, we're just trying to cover our costs. In broad figures, including the bursary, because we want the company to help the student by, as well as offering paid employment during their placements, offer £1,000 a year bursary. Taking that bursary and everything into consideration, it's £4,000 for 2 years.
Okay.
Our scheme's flexible in that companies may want to connect with a first year, a second year, or a third year, and that's completely fine. If it was a third year on a 4-year MEng course, the company would support the student for the final 2 years, and that would be £4,000. Supporting the student throughout the university would be slightly more, but the student would come back for a number of placements. The other thing that's worth mentioning is about placements. The minimum is an 8-week summer placement paid for in the summer vacation. However, a lot of companies are looking for students who are doing a longer placement, maybe a year in industry, or maybe a 6-month placement as part of their MEng degree. That's great. And a lot of we can connect companies with students who are looking for that type of placement. And there the student gets a real chance to engross themselves and embed themselves in a project. And equally, the company get a greater return on investment because the student actually does something productive.
So what you're offering there is the opportunity for companies to try before they buy, to get active work out of the student, and to have a faster route or a more efficient route to building up their graduate gene pool as they take people on. That's fantastic.
For sure, try before you buy, absolutely, and getting people who are going to do active work, who make a real contribution. We've got some really great case studies where people have made a real difference and contributed to companies in their year-long placement, and absolutely sets up that pipeline where you're developing students who are going to graduate each year, and fill up that pipeline so you've got your graduate recruitment all sorted.
So when we talk to engineering companies, they quite often tell us that for the first 18 months, a junior or a graduate engineer is more somebody that they're needing to develop rather than somebody that is giving back to them. So it's after 18 months that they're really being productive. So if you can front end that so that you've got people whilst they're students, then at the point that you're then plugging them in as a graduate engineer, they're much more tried and tested, they're better developed, and you know them, so that they can be productive from effectively day one. And the cost is £4,000 plus any fee.
Salary, yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, Ben, that's absolutely correct. But both in terms of the traditional view about graduates, it takes 18 months or so to develop them, make them productive. People who graduate through our scheme are ready for work. Not only have they had a degree from a leading university, they've had the work experience already, they've been inducted, they've gone through that, they've probably done some work for your company already. And the other thing that I didn't mention, we give them as part of the package a 5-day residential course where we develop professional, personal and employability skills. For instance, communication, negotiation skills, a little bit about lean. So they've got an insight into the sorts of things that they would learn on a graduate development program. That's
fantastic. So in terms of the way the scheme operates in Scotland, do you see the opportunity for more companies to get involved with UKESF from the Scottish community?
That would be fantastic. We are a UK organisation. We've had a presence in Scotland since the outset. In 2010. I'm really keen to grow that more, and as you say, it's an exciting time for technology in Scotland in that broader environment of photonics, optoelectronics as well. So we take a very broad definition. It'd be great to work more with companies in Scotland, and as I said, geography is not a limiting factor for students at English universities. It's really that they are motivated by exciting projects and worthwhile work.
That's fantastic. So it was I don't know if we've got any other questions at the moment. I'm not seeing anything else coming through the Q&A. So if you want to fire any questions through, please do so in the next minute or so before we wind up the webinar. But I just wanted to thank you, Stew, very much for the time that you've taken to take us through the information here. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I hope that we'll be able to roll this webinar out so that people through Technology Scotland, our partners, are able to see some of the information that you've shared with us today. So thank you for your time.
Ben, that's great. Thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking and hopefully helping companies in Scotland.
Fantastic. So Enigma People, I should say, is an invested sponsor of UK Electronic Skills Foundation, and we'll be delighted to continue to promote you where we can and support you. So we'll be showing some clips of this webinar through our website in due course. So fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Stew. I don't see any other questions coming through. Was there any last statements that you wanted to make?
Please get in touch if you need any more details, anyone on the call. And Ben, thank you for your support. It's very much appreciated.
Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, actually, I think we do have another question coming through. Oh, yes, no. Thanks, Ben and Stew. There you go. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So I wish everyone a super afternoon, and we look forward to engaging with you all at some point in the future. Stew, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Bye.